Blazing Saddles has been picked apart, discussed, and referenced to death for decades. But there's one thing that fans have always overlooked. It's not a cutscene, a hidden cameo, or an in-between feud. It's on screen, plain as day, and nobody ever noticed it. Gene Wilder finally acknowledged it, and once you watch it, it alters the way you think about the whole movie. What if the biggest, outrageous comedy of its time only existed because of the quietest delivery in the theater? There's a moment usually forgotten that kept the movie together, and it wasn't scripted. The Waco Kid, the character that was never destined for him, is legendary. When Mel Brooks started shooting Blazing Saddles, the Waco Kid part was already taken by Gig Young, a veteran Hollywood actor and Oscar winner. On paper, Young appeared to be the perfect choice, a class act who could bring gravity to the aging gunslinger role. Behind the scenes, however, all was not well almost from day one. On the very first day of shooting, Young started showing outward signs of distress. He was sweating, shaking, and slurring his lines. Some on set had initially thought he was method acting, but the reality was far more sinister. Young was experiencing acute alcohol withdrawal, and by mid-morning, he had passed out. Production had to shut down. The studio had a problem, and Brooks needed a substitute in a hurry. Rather than auditioning or negotiating with an agent, Brooks placed a personal call to someone he trusted implicitly, Gene Wilder. The two had collaborated in the past on The Producers, and Brooks knew Wilder would perform under pressure. Amazingly, how little Wilder had to be told before agreeing. As Brooks recounts, Wilder didn't inquire about the script, the salary, or even the character description. He just nodded and flew out the following day. This was not a planned career move. It was a favor among coworkers and perhaps a rescue effort for a film in danger. Gene Wilder showed up on set within 24 hours, still jet-lagged, but willing to step in and play a part he'd never read. There's an almost mythic pace to the way Wilder grasped the character. While most actors rehearse for weeks or even months, Wilder only had hours. Yet, by the time they started rolling cameras, he was already playing the Waco Kid as if he'd spent years wearing the character's boots. What made his performance so effective wasn't just his talent. It was his willingness to show up fully present in the chaos. His arrival not only saved the film from early collapse, but also shifted the tone of the entire character. Would a Waco Kid have been as dryly philosophical or quietly tragic if Young had stayed? We'll never know. But Wilder's take became instantly iconic. Still, it does raise an intriguing question. Was Wilder always meant for the role, even if the casting didn't indicate that initially? Brooks never posited it as destiny, but he was adamant on this point. Once Wilder had taken on the part, there was no turning back. What started out as an emergency recasting resulted in one of the most renowned performances of comedic history. The Waco Kid wasn't merely a plan B. It was a standard for subtlety in comedy, and it began with a phone call in the midst of a production meltdown. When Wilder filled in to save the role, what he then did with it surprised everyone on set, and everything was remade. The brilliance of Gene's subdued performance was that his choice of playing the Waco Kid straight was no afterthought. It was a pre-planned decision he made even before he arrived on set. Mel Brooks says Wilder consented to be a part of the production on one clear condition. He was not going to play the character for laughs. In a movie that's full of slapstick, absurdity, and fourth-wall busting anarchy, Wilder demanded to perform a low-key, nearly turn. This was not a comedic actor desperate to steal the show. This was an actor who knew the value of contrast. Wilder did not pound his lines or stretch out his faces. Rather, it moved into stillness, providing the Waco Kid with a sort of quiet heft that freed up the madness around him to fully bloom. This technique wasn't simply a matter of personal taste. It was a deliberate choice that grounded the whole movie. Mel Brooks went on to attribute Wilder's restraint with lending Blazing Saddles its backbone. As much as Hedley Lamarr and others nudged absurdity to the limit, the Waco Kid stood out as an Old West ghost, burned out, introspective, and oddly dignified. The then infamous jailhouse scene where the kid describes his trembling hands and lost nerve wasn't played solely for irony. Wilder acquitted it with a weariness that was almost tragic. It made the line funny, sure, but also human. Without Wilder's inwardly directed style, the satiric film threatened to tip into farce. Curiously, Wilder's insistence on playing it straight might have also been an expression of his own discomfort with excess. People who worked with him typically characterized him as considerate, meticulous, and seriously committed to emotional honesty. On that front, the Waco Kid became an expression of Wilder's own personal credo, a witness who didn't have to yell to be heard. Even when reciting over-the-top dialogue, his timing was impeccable, his tone modulated. No wonder audiences tend to quote his lines not because they're the loudest, but because they're the most surprising. In a film based on punchlines, Wilder's acting was the silence that made the punchlines hit harder. So, was Gene Wilder's style a gamble? Perhaps yes. In the hands of a lesser performer, interpreting the role with such restraint might have gone into the background, but Wilder knew something essential about comedy. Absurdity is made funnier by contrast. By not playing the clown, he made everyone else's craziness all the more humorous. His immobility was the eye of the hurricane. That decision, calm, confident, and measured, became the performance that still characterizes the film half a century later. The unprecedented dream team before Blazing Saddles was released, the name of Richard Pryor was most associated with the production, not only as a writer, but also as the originally cast Sheriff Bart. The role for which Brooks believed Pryor's unbridled comic talent and cultural resonance made him the ideal candidate. His contributions as a co-writer were essential to the creation of the film's voice, particularly its blunt commentary on America's race and power. But whereas Pryor's work behind the camera stood, his opportunities to play the role on screen were summarily eliminated. Warner Brothers executives, concerned about his off-camera controversy and substance abuse troubles, flatly vetoed his casting. Their choice redefined the chemistry of the film and changed a possible comedy turning point in history. Gene Wilder later referred to this missed opportunity, frequently looking back on what the film might have been with Pryor alongside him. The two had a tested chemistry in later movies, such as Silver Streak and Stir Crazy, where their comedic timing and contrast provided some of the most iconic duos in cinema. Had Pryor played Bart in Blazing Saddles, it would have been the beginning of that collaboration years earlier. Wilder never indicated resentment, but he did acknowledge how their rapport could have altered the tone of the movie. Would a Waco Kid's subdued melancholy have come across differently alongside Pryor's pyrotechnic wit? The question remains even after decades. Even with the casting switch, Pryor's fingerprints remain everywhere on the film. His voice is in the rhythm of the humor and the tartness of the satire. Cleavon Little gave a strong performance as Bart, but the underlying bite in so many of the lines was straight Pryor. Wilder himself attributed Pryor's contributions to the script as providing the film with its bite. In so many ways, Pryor informed the film's emotional truth and refusal to whitewash its racial remarks, even though he never appeared on screen. It's a rarity for an actor to have this level of influence on a film without actually appearing in it. But Pryor was able to do just that. Ultimately, Blazing Saddles is a classic of comedic cinema, but it's difficult not to wonder what might have been the alternate version, where Wilder and Pryor came together for the first time amidst the dusty roads and round-the-clock hilarity. That this combination did not occur earlier may feel like a lost opportunity.